Folks, I want to draw your attention to this post over on RC Groups where David Klein, who is from Rotorgeeks, he made a post about the magnets that are in the motors that we use on our copters. And then QuadMcFly, who also knows a thing or two about motors, responded. And I think the exchange is a real goldmine of information about motors and what's happening with motors today. So definitely take the time to go over here and read this yourself and try and internalize as much of this information as you can. It's pretty cool stuff. David starts off by talking about the type of magnets that are being used in some of the high kV motors today. Now you may not know this, I didn't know this until recently. These magnets are mass produced, and they're mass produced to a spec. And one of the things they're rated for is their magnetic field strength. A shorthand way of thinking about it is that kV is inversely related to torque. So a low kV motor can be thought of as being like a truck or a tractor with a really low gearing, where it has lots of torque but it doesn't go very fast. And a high kV motor can be thought of as like some other kind of vehicle that has a higher geared motor that doesn't have a lot of torque. It doesn't get off the line very fast, but it has a higher maybe top speed. Now that analogy, don't take that analogy too far. If you take it too far, you'll get yourself in trouble. But that's a general way of thinking about kV. So one way to increase the kV rating of a motor is to have more windings. And another way to increase the kV rating of a motor is to use a magnet with a higher magnetic field strength. Some of the high kV motors that we're starting to see on the market use a type of magnet called N52. And David starts out talking about these N52 magnets. The most prominent example of a motor using an N52 magnet, I believe, is the Emax red bottom motors. And when these motors came out, QuadMcFly tested them and found that they noticeably more thrust than some other similar motors. But they did it at the cost of more amps. Not decreased efficiency exactly, just more thrust and more amps at about the same efficiency. Well, how do you get more thrust and more amps out of a motor? One way you do it is you use stronger magnets, and the N52 magnets are stronger. But David points out that N52 magnets are rated up to 80 C. Now, let's just get some perspective on that. For those of us who live in Freedom Land, that is 176 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, what that means is that once those magnets go above that temperature, they will start to lose their magnetic field strength. And that is actually not just a temporary loss that recovers when they get back, but the magnets can actually be permanently demagnetized by going above or too close to that rated temperature. And what that means is that if you get, for example, the Emax red bottom motors and you fly them really hard and they get up above that temperature, you probably will experience a permanent loss in power from those motors, because now you'll get a reduction in kV rating is actually what will happen. The magnets will lose magnetic field strength and the kV rating, the effective kV rating, will go down. Whether that's a problem or not depends. Now, David clearly thinks it is a problem, and they use different kinds of magnets in their Rotorgeeks motors. They use a magnet called the N45SH, which has a different temperature rating. That's an engineering choice, and that's actually not a choice that I'm competent to comment on, because I don't design motors and I don't know all the things about magnets. I'm just reading along and nodding my head. But it is interesting to think, do your motors ever go close to 176 degrees Fahrenheit? If the answer to that is yes, then a motor using the N52 magnet, such as the Emax red bottom, is not a good choice for you. On the other hand, if your motors consistently come down cool, maybe that doesn't matter. QuadMcFly comes along and says, actually, your information is a little bit out of date. There are new types of magnets, like the N48SH, which are rated for higher temperatures, or the N52SH, which is rated for higher temperatures. What you could take from this, if you really want to dig in deep, is as you are thinking about what type of motor to get, because there's this plethora of awesome motors on the market right now in the size of about 2205 to 2206, and many of them are 2300 kV, and many of them are these new higher kV, like the 25, 26, 2700 kV motors that are getting popular. One thing you may want to think about as you're considering these motors is what type of magnet is in the motor and what the temperature rating of that magnet is. And if the motor does not contain a magnet with a higher temperature rating, basically these SH ratings, then you may want to reconsider whether that is the motor you want to run. On the other hand, like I said before, if your motors don't get close to 80 C, maybe that's not an issue for you. There's a whole lot more really good technical information in this post that you should just go read. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna waste your time by reading it to you. This is a great exchange, and I really appreciate David and Ryan both for their contributions to the community and to the forum, and it proves what a real resource RC Groups is for making possible people like this to converse on topics like this. If you can if you can manage to drink from the fire hose that is RC Groups. But that's what I'm here for. I find these things and I pass them on to you. Definitely go check this thread and this exchange out. Well worth your time. Happy flying.